Now, one of the priorities of my administration has been to make sure that every resident has safe, affordable, appropriate housing in every neighborhood. And a bustling downtown is key to our overall mission to sustain Harrisburg's recovery and revitalize our city. I can tell you with both enthusiasm and confidence that all of this hard work is paying off. We are making serious strides in tackling Harrisburg's infrastructure problems. Not only did we install new LED lighting throughout the city, but we are working on new roads, new infrastructure, clearing the areas that have been pockmarked with sinkholes and everything for years, and repairing long neglected streets that are the lifeblood of our city. There is a clear rebirth in Harrisburg, and it's an optimism around 2nd, 3rd, and Market Streets right in this area that is particularly palpable. With such positive energy, we're moving to push the economic boom from the downtown out into the neighborhoods and throughout the rest of the city. And we're hard at work, for instance, in the Mulder Square project, which we expect will stimulate rehabilitation of other sections of Allison Hill where too many people currently live below the poverty rate and in substandard housing. And if you haven't lately driven over the Mulberry Street Bridge into that area, which we're calling Mulder Square, right on the edge of Allison Hill, you'll see a remarkable transformation. 3 major new construction projects, as well as a lot of rehabilitation. And you may know we recently sold our first rehabilitated home in that area. We ended up selling the home for more than double the average sales price prior to Mulder Square in the area, sort of bringing property values up. Sold it to a young single mother with children, was able to purchase a brand new multi-bedroom home, all in, including taxes, at less than $500 a month, less than she was paying to rent previously. And part of that is due to our 10-year, 100% tax abatement program that we have for rehab properties. It's really making a difference, and I can go on with a lot of stories where various investors are finally able to make their investments work. As we continue to work to improve housing conditions throughout the city, we're seeing a virtual explosion right here in the downtown. New businesses continue to open, and since 2015, more than 1,000, think about that, more than 1,000 new people have taken jobs in companies right here in the Strawberry Square area. And you know, not only can we see that in the hustle and bustle of the streets and then the ripple effect on the development, but we also see that in our tax revenues. And for the last 2 years, consistently, we've seen increases in earned income tax, increases in the local services tax, increases that prove that more people are working in the downtown, they're earning more money, and ultimately they're paying in and creating a larger, more expanding tax base, which is going to sustain the city as we move forward in the future. More than a dozen new tenants have moved into choice commercial space representing retail, residential, and commercial enterprises in this area. And overall, in just the past 2 years, Harrisburg has added dozens of new residential units to the housing stock, and almost all of those in this area are occupied. There are another 12 units proposed for 2nd Street, and in the past 4 years, 10 significant buildings have been renovated right here within walking distance of where we are now. And we're working with the Harrisburg Housing Authority in other areas of the city, in one particular spot, to acquire up to 48 parcels in one of our most blighted areas with the goal of tearing those down and building new affordable homes for residents. That will build on the success of what you're seeing currently in Mulder Square, but will actually begin to move to uptown Harrisburg. But we need to get more people buying homes in Harrisburg. So to encourage more home ownership, the city has been working with partners in a variety of programs to help people secure financing, either by working with them to clean up their credit records or providing access to loans. And for those of you who like statistics, one of my favorite statistics, it's worth noting, is that we sold about 531 properties, both commercial and residential, in Harrisburg in 2017. And that's compared to about 499 the previous year, and 443 the previous year before that. And you can see the trend. And to give you a clear idea of the improvement in sales of both commercial and residential properties since I took office, consider this statistic. In 2013, there were only 350 properties that were sold in the city. and in 2012 there were only 313. So the trajectory has gone up and continues to go up each and every year as confidence builds. This is one of the clearest signs that things are moving in the right direction in Harrisburg. We expect downtown Harrisburg to continue to bustle with proposed apartment developments and new luxury condos that are attracting the city's young professionals eager for a walkable city and to enjoy the adventures of city life. The area south of Market Street, 36 high-end apartments are slated for opening in August, along with another 12 apartments to open in the new Bog on Cranberry project. By 2019, we'll have 24 new apartments on Pine Street, developed by Harristown. And I have to say, just as an added bonus, I spoke with the folks from Keystone Services just yesterday, and they are looking to relocate right here in Harrisburg, not go to the suburbs, and are looking at previously empty office space to lease. So that's not only an improvement of their former offices, but we're going to keep those jobs here in the city. And all of this is adding to new businesses which have been rushing in to help serve these new residents. Of course, you know about the flagship Rite Aid store which opened last year downstairs. You know about Provisions just below us here. Amazing, most welcome additions to the downtown. Lots of wonderful new restaurants, Fresa Bistro, Frescito, as well as new coffee shops, a new children's daycare center, even a new healthcare facility, the UPMC in Strawberry Square. In fact, we've seen incredible rebound in commercial activity right here, and as you just learned, and I just learned, this is the final commercial space that needs to be leased here in Strawberry Square. In 2013, you had a 40% vacancy rate, and today, this is it. And it's going to get snapped up too. It's a wonderful, wonderful space. So that's an incredible trajectory for the city. And there's even more good news. Because as Brad alluded to, on the near horizon, there are plans for amazing projects. First, you have the $150 million Harrisburg University project, 3rd and Chestnut. That is the largest single project since Strawberry Square, which is going to be enormously transformative for the whole downtown. We're also looking forward to $80 million, which is going to go into the Forum building not far from here, which is probably one of the projects that maybe you don't know too much about. The Forum building, which currently houses the Forum Theater and the State Library, well, it has enormous potential for office space, and the governor and DGS have committed $80 million to renovating that building. It currently houses fewer than 100 employees. It's very underutilized. By the time they're finished, it's going to have room for over 800 employees. They're going to not only finish relocating all the rest of those employees that are currently at the old state hospital grounds, but they're looking to relocate others back into the city as well. So that's hundreds of more people coming back into the downtown. Also, we've got a $50 million planned state archives building, and that is just on the state level. And as you might expect, all of this is also showing, here's more statistics for you, an uptick in cities' business licenses and in business mercantile tax revenue. And here's some news that I just got this morning, which is that through this month, our business mercantile tax revenue in the city is $350,000 higher than it was for the same period last year. So that is incredible. All of the different revenue streams for the city are showing real growth, and they're showing it year to year. And if we can continue to build on this, we have a formula for great success for the future. So I really do believe Harrisburg is on a solid path of growth. It's going to spread from the downtown into every neighborhood of the city. And when I was inaugurated now, about 5 years ago, I put it this way: the worst is over, and the best is yet to come. And I know you join me in celebrating Harrisburg's resurgence and in looking forward to the flurry of ribbon cuttings and renovations that are going to spark even more excitement in our city for the years to come. So that's just a brief state of the city that I put together for you to sort of set the stage. I do want to talk about one thing, which is a looming issue and a really important issue, and it's one that you can help the city lobby for. Basically, the fact that we're in such a strong financial and stable condition, yes, it's a tribute to carefully controlled spending and good strategic planning, but it's also a tribute to the fact that the Act 47 process has worked and has worked very well for the city. When the state took over and the city went into receivership and we hit rock bottom, the city made very difficult choices. We, as you know, we privatized our trash. We essentially privatized our water and sewer system, and we privatized our parking. The city residents sacrificed. They saw their taxes go up, but they knew that we all had to come together and put the city on a firm, stable financial footing. As a result, the city has shown surpluses. We've been able to save that money. We've been able to build up a fund balance. We've been able to borrow again for major projects in a modest way. All of that is at risk because the legislature, in their infinite wisdom, they put a time clock on Act 47, and they basically said that after 5 years, the authority that you have within Act 47 will expire. And this, I think it was motivated with good intentions to encourage people and municipalities to get out of Act 47. But what it essentially means is that in September of this year, when we hit our 5th anniversary, we are facing a choice under the current law, which is either we go back into receivership, or we go out of receivership, or we get a 3-year, or go out of Act 47, or we get a 3-year extension. The problem is that part of the city's success is that in Act 47, we've been given some extra taxing authority. That extra taxing authority raises about 20% of our budget. It's about $12 million out of a $60 million general fund budget. It's working. The majority of that is earned income tax. It's paid for by city residents. But we don't get to keep that under the current law if we exit Act 47. What that would mean would be, and what the recovery plan unfortunately calls for, is that if we can't get legislative change allowing us to keep the authority that's working, not asking for anything new, just keep us on the path that we are now, we would have to raise property taxes. And we'd have to raise property taxes to fill that $12 million gap, which is something that nobody wants to do, but would essentially mean 150%, well more than doubling property taxes in the city. Now, we know we can't do that. We won't do that. And that's why the city won't vote for an extension of 3 years, because an extension of 3 years would call for those property taxes to be incrementally phased in over the next 3 years. There's no desire to do that. It would be counterproductive. So we're focused on the better option, which is legislative change. And we're fortunate. We have a strong state senator in Senator DeSanto who really has been pushing Republican leadership at the state level to help achieve this change in the law, which is basically a change to Act 47 saying that, hey, if you've got taxing authority and it's working and you've got a proven track record and it's needed and the financial people all sign off on it, then you should be able to keep it as part of your exit strategy. We're looking to do that this summer as part of whatever budget package is adopted by the legislature. It's an election year, as you know. We're confident that we're going to be able to get something done. But I would think a letter of support to Senator DeSanto, to our local representatives. We need basically the entire central Pennsylvania delegation on our side and supportive. I've met with everyone. We've got strong champions like Greg Rothman, and we've got other sort of quiet champions that don't want to step up and take the lead that are there. And it really has to be a Republican-led initiative given the current makeup of the legislature. So if you don't want to see property taxes go up, if you do want to see the continued recovery of the city moving forward, we've got to address the Act 47 issue now. We have a wonderful lobbying team that we've hired that have been up there meeting with everyone, and basically I've been spending really countless hours for the last couple months focused on this issue. The good news is that we can get it fixed in June with the budget proposal. We can be out of Act 47. When we get out of Act 47, that's going to allow us to do a couple of things which have great benefit for everyone. It's going to allow us to refinance our general obligation debt, which we can't currently do. Now, one of the great things about Act 47 is that we retired hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. And we have a general obligation debt for the city, which is reasonable. It's manageable. It's not overly burdensome. But we pay a very high interest rate. We're paying, we're paying about 6.75% on that general obligation debt. And we could refinance it right now and save again what would amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in payments, valuable resources that could go back into infrastructure, economic development, and other priorities of the city. We can't do that because of this looming question of the Act 47 taxing authority potentially expiring. I think Wall Street is ready to give us a credit rating. They're ready to affirm the city's recovery, but we've got to solve that issue. The other thing that we have trouble doing currently without fixing this Act 47 problem is we are having a hard time recruiting police officers. While Brad has alluded to the sort of team that we've been able to put together administratively, it's been very hard to bring people in a union environment, especially police officers, when they look and they see the sort of cloud of Act 47 and the potential lack of that long-term solution. Believe it or not, we just had a class of officers that we've been trying to recruit. We're going to be hiring about 8 new officers, but we wanted to hire 12, 13, 14, 15 new officers for the city. And the number one question which comes up again and again is, what's the plan to get out of Act 47 and their concerns? So I think you'd see both a public safety benefit, you'd see a financial benefit for the city in terms of refinancing, and that's leaving aside all the other issues. So that's a very, very important thing that's going on. Again, supporting our local delegates and encouraging them to help Harrisburg at this critical moment, I think, is important. So with those two things that I said I was going to do, I think we should open it up to questions. I'd be happy to talk about any aspect of the city's development, projects on the way, other exciting things that are happening for the city. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking the time to meet with us this morning.
Sure.
One of the biggest complaints that sort of outside Harrisburg residents have is parking in the city.
Yeah.
And I understand that there was a recent rollback of parking hours. Free parking is now provided. What's the response so far been to that?
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the parking. It is true that was part of the deal, right? By privatizing the parking assets, the city retired hundreds of millions of dollars in debt and got itself back on its feet. The problem with the deal is that we sort of established this complicated leadership network, which basically has the bondholders and their representatives, the Commonwealth, and a whole bunch of other interests sort of at the table trying to manage a system. It makes the system not particularly nimble, and it makes it hard to adapt to positive changes that can make a real difference, like our 5 to 7 program. But I've found that if you work with it and you make your proposals based on a sort of financial argument, you can get things done. So with the 5 to 7 program, what basically happened is that the city and with the county and the downtown improvement district, so it was an excellent example of cooperation, basically guaranteed the city, the system, the revenue that it was normally making from 5 to 7. It took the average of the past several years from 5 to 7, including ticket revenue and meter revenue for the downtown, calculated that out, divided it between the three groups, pledged that to the system, and then the system agreed to eliminate the meters from 5 to 7. And ultimately, there's a chance that the system's going to make even more money under that plan, because the more the downtown grows, if more people come back, more people park, it gets harder and harder to find parking spaces, you have more people moving into garages, and the revenues just continue to grow as more people come downtown. It's an interesting plan, and it's working very well. The preliminary results Well, they're very strong among the merchants. If you speak to the restaurateurs and the others downtown, they're very appreciative. They've seen an increase in the number of tables, for sure, but it's also very noticeable if you're downtown from 5 to 7. Just from a consumer standpoint, it is harder to find parking spaces. More and more people are coming down. When we put that deal together, we asked the Downtown Improvement District to basically be the custodian of the statistics, to calculate this, and to give a series of reports over the course of the next year back to City Council. And they asked as well to make sure that the money was well invested, that we actually saw the type of return that we wanted. So there's going to be a fairly scientific data set that we're going to have to evaluate this, but the early reports are really, really strong. And it's similar to what we did, if you recall, even before that, we convinced the system to lower the rate by $1. We actually made them a bet which said, if you lower the rate from 5 to 7 by $1 and you don't make more money doing that, we'll cover the difference. And they lowered it by $1 and more people parked. So you eliminate the cost of parking from 5 to 7, more people come down. More people are spending money, more businesses are able to succeed, and more tax revenue comes into the city. So we get it back. We get it back in the end. We've done some other things. We still have one of our great secrets for the parking system is that you can park on Saturdays for free with the Love Harrisburg promo code, which is in the Park Mobile app. 4 hours, any Saturday, any time, easy to use, and the Park Mobile app's been a good thing. You add those few things together, and I think we've mitigated some of the negative impact of the parking system. The two areas which changed when they brought in the new regime was they extended the hours from 5 to 7, and they added hours on Saturday. So we've really tried to focus on mitigating the costs of those two things. Generally, parking is a very positive issue. With the new development that is happening, both with Harrisburg University, the system itself still has a lot of capacity. In other words, the garages have a lot of room in them. We start bringing in new employees for the Project at Forum Place, or I know Harrisburg University has asked for, I think, about 300 new spaces in the garages just for its one project alone. And that should help the revenues of the system, and it should help take some of the pressure off. We just have to get to that point. And we're currently in negotiations with the system, and I've been pushing them really hard to not raise meter rates above where they currently are, to keep them in place for the next couple of years until we can get to that point where we start having seeing the results of the increased economic development and more people coming back. And I hope we can report a deal on that soon. We have a deal in principle to keep meter rates stable for this year and next, but not everyone has signed off on it yet that needs to sign off on it. So I think we've dealt pretty well with the parking issue, and I don't think it has, while it is a continual topic of conversation, more so than just about anything else, it's something that we're able to work with. Yeah.
Two questions. Just would you mind giving us a brief update on where we stand with the two-way street for Second Street?
Okay.
And you touched briefly on blight. To me, that's a really big issue. I perceive it precipitously throughout Pennsylvania in general, but most especially in the city of Harrisburg. What, if anything, is the city proactively, I should say, partner with the private industry outside of Florida to incentivize redevelopment and revitalization?
Yeah. So okay, so we'll take those in parts, and there's a couple other things we're doing on the blight level too. Let's start with Second Street. What's that?
I don't think everybody heard the question.
Okay,
So
all
if you
right.
could
So
say
the
that
first
you-
question had to do with traffic patterns in the city, specifically with plans to make Second Street two ways. And I can report that is very much occurring. If you drive down Second Street, have you noticed the traffic counters that are in the street? That is part of a traffic study, which is setting the grounds for taking Second Street two-way. I think you also see them on Division Street. There are a few other spots. That data is being collected really over the next 6 months. It's already started, and the plan is basically to move to Second Street two-way in 2020. We are currently finishing 3rd Street. We had previously done Front Street. we're not able to do all the streets at one time. We've had to sort of mix this in. And we have one major aspect that has to be done next year before we can get the 2nd Street two-way, which is some improvements to the 7th Street corridor. And those improvements are being coordinated with the new federal courthouse. We haven't even mentioned that, which is very much underway and happening. Going to have I think a ribbon cutting, real actual shovel beginning of the project here this summer. And we're looking at a new roundabout, basically a traffic circle at the corner of Riley and 7th. We are looking at a new parking structure of some sort, which I am hoping will be oriented more towards Midtown, but which nonetheless will be somewhere in the courthouse vicinity. We're looking at eliminating the mid-street parking around FIA with those meters in the middle of the street. We're looking at actually putting in a protected bike lane and some other things on 7th Street. It's going to be really nice. And we have to improve the traffic flow from Forster Street up to 7th Street, which is the main exit strategy for commuters when we would take 2nd Street two-way. So that's happening. We are also conducting a traffic study, and you maybe read about this, a new sort of Vision Zero plan for dealing with the issue of pedestrian fatalities on the State Street Bridge. This is something which has come up recently. We've had a number of tragic accidents on State Street as commuters and others have been sort of leaving the Capitol complex. So we really need to see improvements on State Street. That can be better lighting. These are things that can be done, I think, over the course of next year. Improvements on 7th Street. The finishing of the 3rd Street project, which is stretching into next year. I can talk a little bit about that, but that project is a very complicated project because of all of the green infrastructure and stormwater management components of it. When it was funded explicitly by Impact Harrisburg as a collaboration. It was to be a collaboration between the city and Capital Region Water. And many of these large intersections and bump outs that are going to be a part of it, which you can begin to see with the markings in the roads and everything, they can contain a lot of complicated underground infrastructure and water filtration, which is not only very expensive. The project is ending up costing, I think, several $1 million more than was originally planned to because of all the green infrastructure. But it's complicated and difficult work. But that's very much continuing. Next year, look for 7th Street and State Street improvements into 2020 with 2nd Street two-way. I'm committed to getting that done during this term, and we're really excited about it. The reason, and just so you know, if we're only talking about the section of 2nd Street that is north of Forster Street. We're not talking about the downtown. Just to be clear, that will the traffic pattern for the downtown is mostly staying the same, but it is post Forster Street where we'd like to return that more to a residential street. We feel it's a sort of a super highway cutting through a residential neighborhood, and we do want to try and reroute traffic up to 7th Street and out of the city, either via McClay Street, the bridge there is being replaced, or ideally all the way down to Division Street, and then out of the city one way or the other. We have put a grant proposal together for the federal government. We did not receive a Tiger grant in the last round, but there's going to be another round of Tiger grant funding coming up. We got feedback on our application, and we feel that a bridge over the train tracks at Division Street connecting the Uptown Plaza area with Hack and Wildwood would be an amazing thing for the city, but also a long-term additional exit or gateway from or to the city. Yeah, all the way over to Industrial Road. Yeah, so that is that's a $50 million project, but one that we've already applied to the federal government to seed with a major funding grant. We also have a state RCAP grant and some other things going in. Okay, so any questions about 2nd Street two-way or traffic patterns in the city? Not, we can go on to Blight, but everybody understands that. I think people are very excited about that change, and I think that's probably going to be the single most transformative traffic-related change that we could do in the city. It's going to be an amazing thing. Should increase property values and also not inconvenience commuters if done right. It's going to take a little bit longer to get out of the city, and people are going to have to change their set way of zooming up 2nd Street. But we want to make it safer for pedestrians. We want to make it safer for all involved. And the idea of having that sort of sheltered bike lane on 7th Street and protecting pedestrians and bicyclists at the same time as making it faster and more efficient for commuters is what we're aiming for. Okay, so the second question had to do with blight and what we're doing to sort of incentivize private partners beyond the LRTA. And I have to say, really, LRTA is the main tool which the city has. I mean, there are some other potential tools that we have. We've talked about reducing business license fees for new businesses, and we have a very small it's a very small percentage that comes in from mercantile tax revenue, but the LRTA is key. It's the main thing which people pay into the city is property tax. And by basically eliminating the need to pay any property tax, 100% on both commercial and residential renovation projects in the city, they come with the renovation projects come with no qualifying conditions. There are qualifying conditions on new construction, but on rehabbing a blighted property, none. You get 100%, 10 years. That has made the numbers work for a number of developers in different places. Now, you can't put $100,000 into renovating a property and have it ultimately turn around and only have a value of $80,000 or $90,000 and expect it to work. But you can in certain areas. Make that where the property values are higher. That's why I was excited. We sold the home in Mulder Square for over $80,000. So that's pretty good when the average home value in that neighborhood was half of that prior to it. This is why the city is trying to selectively encourage rehab development. We're essentially subsidizing in an effort to bring up the property values. If we can get the property values high enough, then we can make the numbers work for investors in putting in the renovation. And that's certainly true in some areas of the city. And there are still blighted properties and opportunities. There's recently a property that the Redevelopment Authority just sold on North Street that you probably know about. It's fairly near Montjuic that's been sitting there forever. The gentleman who just bought it is excited about the LRTA, excited about the possibilities of finally being able to turn that around. We've got, in terms of blight, and if you have other suggestions for how we can incentivize private investment, I'd be curious to know. We are looking at lobbying to change some laws on Capitol Hill with regard to blight, and we've got a very smart, qualified, and excellent codes administrator who's been doing lobbying. This is sort of quietly behind the scenes. We've been working with Senator Argel, his committee, a variety of other people that want to see legislative change, having to do with things such as the fire escrow, which really, a lot of times you have fires in the city of Harrisburg. Good luck, recovering any people will sort of take the insurance settlement and leave, and the city is left with a burned out structure, which has to get added to our list. We have hundreds and hundreds of currently blighted properties in the city of Harrisburg. We have a condemned property list of over 300. We can probably, with the added funding, I told you we put in an extra $250,000. Well, it's 10 more properties, that we're targeting. But we're still mostly triaging. We go from emergency fire to partial building collapse to you name it on a regular basis. We have an in-house demolition group. We also outsource demolition to private contractors. We've really picked up the pace, but it's a large systemic problem that's going to take a long time to change. Other legislative changes have to do with what we can do to sort of force people to register their principals, as well as to additional powers for municipalities and cities. Yeah, if you look at a tragic example of frustration for the city is the wall collapse near the McFarland building out by Cameron Street. Basically you have a private property which is collapsed on another private property, It is somewhat near a state bridge that was renovated, so PennDOT has gotten into it. But the city is really limited in what we can do. We can cite the property owner, which we have. We could probably force the property owner into bankruptcy, which doesn't really solve anything for anybody. We can get people to the table and encourage them to. One thing which the city proposed, which is a really good proposal, is why don't we all just chip in? We won't admit liability, but let's all put some money into a pot for a solution, and let's stabilize the situation in the wall. But getting everyone to agree, especially when you're talking about a multi-million-dollar problem, cleaning up that wall and stabilizing a building which is about to collapse is very, very difficult. But it speaks to also the limitations that a city really has to deal with private property owners, and we respect private property rights as well. But ultimately, how do you get people who don't want to conform to community standards to conform? We have a lot of those problems. You've got a lot of buildings. There's another effort to potentially change the law, has to do with whether or not we can require people purchasing condemned properties at tax sale to put up a bond or something at the time of sale to show that they have the means to actually fix them up, rather than simply to speculate in them, hold on to them, turn them on eBay, sell them to in foreign countries. It's really a problem. They sort of go from hand to hand, and things don't get changed. So, but I think we've made inroads into blight. We've also targeted specific areas, specific blighted buildings. That's why going over the Mulberry Street Bridge and looking at that section of Allison Hill is so transformatively impressive. We took down a lot of blighted properties there, and it's really improved the whole neighborhood. And it's helping us stabilize and find buyers for some of the other properties that can be saved. We're looking at some other key buildings in the city. Another one which I'm very hopeful for is called the Hudson Building there on the corner of 6th and McClay Street. Big old building near the Camp Curtin Y, which has the potential to be transformed from a blighted, uninhabited building into something very exciting. I know we've spoken to the Vartan Group. They've had interest for the first time in a long time from major commercial retailers in their properties in that corridor. The city, as you know, is looking to relocate, maybe you don't know, but the city is looking to relocate its downtown police central headquarters into uptown Harrisburg. We're also currently building a substation in the Mulder Square area. That's $1 million project as well. Taking a blighted property, demolished it, putting in a nice new, modest, but it's $1 million brand new substation, improving property values slowly where we can. So a long answer on blight, but we're working at it. It's a big problem for the city and for many other third-class cities. Sure. Other questions? We've got transportation. We've got blight. Any testimonials from you all as to the real estate market and the perceptions that you encounter? I would be interested in your jobs on a regular basis. Have you noticed a change in number of inquiries, consumer confidence, more people looking at the city, or not yet?
Yeah,
I'll throw it back. Yes.
Typically residential. I mean, I've been in residential Harrisburg market for a very long time, and the negative perceptions that we once had are still there, but not nearly as prevalent, whether they be safety, parking, but there's just a resurgence of everyone's there in certain sections of the city, and I want to be there whether I'm going to be a renter or a homeowner, and so the market's as strong as I've ever seen it in Harrisburg.
I can piggyback off that. It's definitely it's just been refreshing to see the turnover and resurgence in that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the composition of communities, whether it be the art, culture. Midtown most especially is probably the headwinds of that, but it's been refreshing to see, and a lot of that has to do with your administration, so I appreciate all your efforts. If there's anything that we can do through the Association of Realtors
Yeah, well, that's good to hear because, you know, especially with the flooding concerns and everything else, Shipehook was really, it was hard to move across. It was bad. It was bad. And so if you've seen a turnaround there, that's really good news. A couple, yeah, sure, go ahead. Yep.
I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say a couple other things which maybe you don't know about, which I think are really exciting for the city. A couple quick updates on some projects. One, the Riverwalk replacement project is currently being finalized. That is looking to happen next year, and that is a complete replacement of the concrete slab all on the River Street, all the way from Maclay to Shipehook. And this year, they're going to start with that little area right down from Passage to India, which was a sort of a boat dock. They're going to clean that up and put in a path leading under the one railroad bridge there to the portion of the Riverwalk that was already repaired that leads down to the Dock Street Dam. So I think that's an amazing story for the city. We got $1.5 million grant. Actually, we got $1 million grant from PennDOT, federal funds to do that. Then when we said it wasn't enough, they gave us another $500,000, and it's really exciting that that's going to be completed. Another thing that's happening, maybe a little under the radar, but very important to the community, is that with the support of Capital Region Water and the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, we received a lot of money to start fixing up our playgrounds. And we have 5 playgrounds in the city of Harrisburg that are being completely remodeled as we speak this summer. And they're going to reopen with new basketball courts, new playground equipment, new surface coverings, and they're in key strategic neighborhoods all over the city. Again, one of them's in Midtown Harrisburg, the Saferd Street Playground, which is currently a field, and they're going to really add to quality of life issues. And thirdly, I don't know what this means yet, but in the Trump tax plan, there was the creation of something called opportunity zones. And my understanding of the way these opportunity zones work is they were to be designated by the governor of each state in a proportion of census tracts, no more than I think a quarter of census tracts that are impoverished throughout the Commonwealth. So it's a targeted designation, and they're set up so that investors, if they invest in an opportunity zone project, can essentially not pay taxes on capital gains. At least that's the way I understand it. And they're in the process. They have now been designated, and Harrisburg has been designated pretty much the whole city, including the downtown. And that's a pretty extraordinary thing. If you look at a map of Pennsylvania, sure, you've got some opportunity zones in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh, but then there's this big cluster, which is pretty much the entire city of Harrisburg. It's really all of Harrisburg except for the sort of 2 river wards in Midtown and Uptown Harrisburg, which probably don't have a lot of major opportunity zone project funding. But all of the Vartan area and the 6th Street corridor, all the downtown, all of Allison Hill, the South Side, all now an opportunity zone. So what that means as we move forward, and I think the IRS further defines the tax benefits of this for Harrisburg, could be a pretty exciting thing. Anyhow, you were about to say.
Going back to the parking, one of the things I understand from the housing and the retail component, but what's not spoken to is the office users. And what's happening, especially south of Forester, when any time a new user is looking at coming in to lease office space, and we live in a world of square foot cost, parking alone is $6 to $7 a square foot. Either the employees are paying it or the company's paying it. And it's onerous. It puts it outside of, I mean, you literally can go, into Susquehanna, into Des Moines, Williamsburg, and you're saving $6 to $7 a square foot. So there has to be a reason why that's there. It's not there. And the unintended consequence of that is you're seeing office buildings that are going for tax appeals and seeing significant reduction in their property taxes because they can't lease the space because they have no parking. I don't think it's being addressed, and I don't know what you can do about it because you've got to have long-term solution to those occupants. They're not going to sign a 5-year deal where they're paying $150 to $200 per space. And when you put the math together, that $6 or $7 doesn't make sense for
Yep.
buildings.
I get it. So there's actually more that we can do than I think maybe we realize at the moment. And the parking system has made some deals with individual folks that have wanted to relocate in the city. The way the competitive parking system is set up is it basically sort of took the parking that existed at the time of the deal and basically sort of standardized that. But there are provisions which allow you to if you're bringing in new business, new parkers into the system, there's room for negotiation. And the problem is that there isn't a single person or entity at the parking system with whom to negotiate. But I've personally been working with a number of people who basically have come to the parking system and they've said, we won't relocate in the system unless we can get a better deal on monthly parking. They've been open to that. They're open to signing long-term leases as long as it can be shown that it's additional parking. It's something that wouldn't otherwise happen. And I would encourage you to reach out to our office and try.
One other
yeah.
follow-up that would have helped tremendously in the legislation, as I understand it.
Yeah.
You can't own the parking that doesn't adjoin or on your property.
Right.
So, the fact that, and I have a situation with a blighted building that's in the restricted area, even one of the downtown players, Pinnacle, is saying we can't buy that property, though we'd like to use it for parking because it's not adjoining our property. I mean, that's a problem. If people could buy a lot within that area, it would at least help some of it.
Yeah.
But they're kind of going, are you seriously, I can't buy a lot and park my own cars there?
Yeah, those are two separate issues. So, I'm just telling you the way it is. The parking system would not want to see competitive new commercial parking lots within the district emerging, which would then divert parkers from the system. They are willing to work if you're planning to bring in a new business. So if there is a lot that would that could be connected to a new project that would not siphon parkers away, but would instead bring more people into the city, then that's potentially doable. But just having a sole standalone commercial parking lot not associated with new jobs or new people, that would from their perspective that would be a problem. So yes.
Art and I work in the same arena. It's not just new business, it's expansion of existing business where they can't get what they need because of the dollars that Art just spoke to. So they leave the city, which complicates it, makes it even worse than we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I can't go into the parking authority and say, tell us, we're going to bring new business in. I may be trying to expand from 3,000 feet to 8,000 feet. We can't find parking or space at a cost that makes sense.
Yeah, we need to work together to address that because I assure you the parking system doesn't want people to leave the city, and we need the revenues, and there's a case that can be made. It's just a question of how you make it to the system. I talked about how structurally it's a difficult system because really the Commonwealth runs the system, but they don't want anything to do with the day-to-day operations. The day-to-day operations are sort of watched over by the bondholders or the representatives of the bondholders or the guarantors, and that's an odd. I mean, they have no experience in parking, so they don't know what's going on. It's up to us, I think, to craft that path forward, and I feel like just like we were able to achieve the 5 to 7, we could probably achieve a series of individual agreements with specific businesses. So if you represent somebody who is looking to expand, or is threatening to leave because of financial circumstances, we should set up a meeting, and we should have an honest conversation with the parking system and see if we can work something out.
Who would you contact first?
I contact my office, and I'll put you in touch with the people that we need to be put in touch with. This is a continuing issue that I have, which is we have a lot of great ideas and a lot of potentially innovative solutions for how we can deal with this. all of which end up making more revenue for the system and not less revenue for the system. But cutting through all that red tape can be difficult, but we've got a parking administrator with the city, and we can advocate for you. We can try. If you haven't tried it, you should give it a try, because we have made it work for a handful of businesses, and we have some creative ideas, like potentially. I'd like to see a potential ability to lease metered parking spaces for residents, for businesses, and other types of things. Yes.
My cohorts are correct.
Yeah.
But I can also, I have Campus Square, this is the police house.
Sure.
Campus Square, Campus Building at 305 North Front Street. I've shown today at 305 North Front Street. I had one 2 weeks ago. In the last month, we've had 3 showings of Campus Square. We think we're close to making a deal with one of them. So what they say is true for something. There still is better than normal activity, I think, in the last couple of months.
Well, so that's really positive, and I know our lobbyist friends are moving into your building at Campus Square, which is really exciting. And and I think parking is not as much of an issue, obviously, there than it is in the downtown. So it's different. It's different. Each individual circumstance is slightly different, but that's good. Thank you for that positive news. A final question. Yeah. All right. So let me just say that if parking is an issue, or if you have questions about whether or not a lot can be developed into parking, or other issues, just email me at mayor@harrisburgpa.gov. We'll set up an opportunity to meet. I'd love to meet your potential business clients and talk to them about their needs, and I'd love to see if I can help translate those needs with the parking system and make things work, because we all want the same thing, which is we want a city of Harrisburg which is continuing to grow. We're seeing it. We'd like to accelerate that to every way possible, and we don't want things like the current parking system to be an impediment. I am pretty optimistic that we can make it work for us if we work together. So thank you. Thanks for having me. This was fun. Thank you.
I want to thank you because I think there are a lot of questions. We've come a long way in Harrisburg. We still have some things that we need to overcome. You've done a great job. On behalf of the Commercial Council and Harristown, we want to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is
It's been
great.
very informative and very
Wonderful.
helpful. So
All right.
thank you.